fellas, let me tell you something. The way you carry yourself, the way you move, the way you talk, the way you react, women see it all. And if you think they don't, oh, trust me, they do. See, weakness ain't just about muscles. It's not just about money. It's about how you hold your ground, how you stand in your purpose. And a lot of men out here, they're slipping, they're giving off weakness without even realizing it. And women, they notice, they test you, they push you just to see what you're made of. And if you ain't solid, if you ain't firm in who you are, they know. But once they see weakness, game over. But today we fix that. Today we expose it, and today we turn it around. You ready? Let's go. Women can sense uncertainty the moment it enters the room. It's in the way a man hesitates before answering, the way he second guesses himself, the way his eyes search for approval before he speaks. Confidence isn't about always being right. It's about owning your choices, standing firm in your decisions, and navigating the outcome with certainty. When a man lacks confidence in his decision-making, he sends a signal, one that says he's unsure, he's unsteady, and he doesn't fully trust himself. And if he doesn't trust himself, why should anyone else? Indecision shows up in the smallest ways. When a woman asks where you want to eat and you shrug, saying, I don't know, whatever you want. When you hesitate to make a move in your career because you're afraid of failing. When you second guess a simple choice and go back and forth. It's not about being controlling. It's about having a mind that's made up, a direction that's clear. A man who is secure in himself doesn't wait for permission to decide. He doesn't need someone else to validate his choices. Women test men without even realizing it. They want to see if he stands on solid ground. If they ask a question and a man wavers, changes his mind, or seems lost in uncertainty, it creates a feeling of instability. Strength isn't about knowing everything. It's about making a call and standing behind it. People respect decisiveness, and women especially gravitate toward a man who exudes assurance. A leader doesn't have all the answers, but he moves forward. And when a man hesitates too much, when he's afraid to make a choice, he unknowingly places himself in the position of being led instead of leading. Seeking validation is one of the most overlooked signs of weakness that many men don't even realize they're displaying. It's in the way they constantly check for approval before making a move. How they wait for someone else to tell them they're good enough. How they crave reassurance instead of standing firm in their own self-worth. Women can spot this a mile away. The moment a man starts looking to others, especially to her, to define his value, he's already lost control of his own identity. A confident man doesn't need to be told he's doing well. He already knows it. He doesn't need a pat on the back every time he makes a decision because he trusts himself. But when a man seeks constant validation, it sends a message that he doubts himself. And doubt is contagious. If he doesn't believe in himself, why should anyone else? A woman isn't attracted to a man who is constantly fishing for compliments, asking if he's good enough, or waiting for approval before taking action. She wants to feel like she's with someone who can stand on his own, someone who doesn't need to be reassured at every step. This kind of behavior shows up in subtle ways, asking too often if she likes him, waiting for her to make all the choices, needing her to acknowledge every little effort. It's exhausting. Confidence isn't about arrogance. It's about knowing your own worth without needing someone else to confirm it. A man who relies too much on external validation will never be truly secure. Women respect a man who validates himself, who knows his strengths and owns his presence without constantly seeking approval. That level of self-assurance is what sets leaders apart from followers. Being overly agreeable might seem like a good thing on the surface. After all, who doesn't appreciate kindness and cooperation? But when a man agrees with everything just to avoid conflict or keep the peace, it doesn't come across as kindness. It comes across as weakness. Women don't respect a man who is afraid to express his own thoughts, challenge a perspective, or stand firm in what he believes. A man who says yes to everything, who nods along even when he disagrees, who suppresses his real opinions just to be liked, is a man who lacks a backbone. Women test for strength in ways they don't even realize. They might throw out a strong opinion just to see if a man folds under pressure. They might push a boundary to see if he enforces it. If he never pushes back, never voices his real feelings, never establishes where he stands, he sends a message that he's willing to bend for approval. And if he bends too much, he eventually breaks. A man who constantly seeks harmony at the cost of his own integrity isn't seen as kind. He's seen as weak. True strength isn't about being argumentative or confrontational. It's about standing firm in your values even when it's uncomfortable. Women respect a man who has his own mind, who isn't afraid to disagree, who can say no without fear. A man who is too eager to please, who avoids all conflict, and who sacrifices his authenticity just to be liked becomes forgettable. Women don't remember the man who agreed with everything they said. They remember the man who stood for something. If a man won't stand up for himself, how can she trust him to stand up for her? Fear of confrontation is one of the biggest signs of weakness a man can show, and most don't even realize how obvious it is. Women notice when a man avoids difficult conversations, when he backs down from challenges, when he lets things slide that should be addressed. A man who is too afraid to set boundaries, too hesitant to call something out when it's wrong, too worried about upsetting others. He's not seen as kind or easygoing. He's seen as weak. A woman will test this instinctively. She'll see how far she can push, not necessarily to be manipulative, but to understand what kind of man she's dealing with. If he lets disrespect go unchecked, if he allows people to walk over him, if he avoids confrontation just to keep the peace, she knows he lacks the strength to handle real challenges. And if he can't stand up for himself, how can he stand up for her? Avoiding confrontation doesn't just show up in big arguments. It's in the small moments too. When a man doesn't correct someone who crosses the line, when he laughs off disrespect instead of addressing it, when he says it's fine, even when it's clearly not. A woman wants to feel protected, and protection isn't just physical. It's emotional, mental, and spiritual. A man who is afraid to speak up, who hesitates when it's time to enforce a boundary, who allows fear of discomfort to dictate his actions, loses respect fast. Strength doesn't mean being aggressive or confrontational for no reason. It means standing firm when something needs to be addressed. It means being willing to have tough conversations, to demand respect, to make it clear what will and won't be tolerated. Women notice when a man avoids this, and the moment they sense he's unwilling to stand up for himself, they start losing faith in him. Inconsistency between words and actions is one of the fastest ways a man loses respect without even realizing it. Women pay attention to what a man says, but more than that, they watch what he does. If he makes promises but doesn't follow through, if he talks about his ambitions but never takes action, if he presents himself as one way but lives another, she notices. And once she sees that his words don't align with his reality, trust starts to fade. A man who says he's going to do something but never does it creates doubt. It might seem small at first, canceling plans last minute, making excuses for not following through, saying one thing and doing another. But over time, these inconsistencies add up. Women don't respect a man who can't be counted on, a man who lacks discipline, a man who talks big but delivers small. She wants to know that if he says he'll be somewhere, he'll be there. If he says he's working on his goals, there's actual progress to show for it. If he claims to have certain values, his life reflects them. This kind of weakness reveals itself in relationships, in careers, in everyday decisions. A man who is inconsistent is unpredictable in the worst way, not because he's spontaneous, but because he's unreliable. Women want stability, not perfection. A man doesn't have to have everything figured out, but he needs to be solid in his word. If he lacks follow-through, if he's full of empty promises, if his actions contradict his character, he loses credibility. And once credibility is gone, respect follows right behind it. Emotional instability and neediness are two of the biggest signs of weakness that women pick up on almost instantly. A man who can't control his emotions, who reacts impulsively, who constantly seeks reassurance and attention, he unknowingly pushes people away. Women respect strength, and part of that strength is emotional control. That doesn't mean suppressing emotions or acting like a robot. It means having the ability to process feelings without letting them dictate every action. A woman wants to feel like she's with a man who can handle life's challenges, not someone who crumbles under pressure. If a man gets overly emotional at minor setbacks, if he constantly needs her validation to feel good about himself, if he lets his mood swing uncontrollably, it makes him look unstable. She doesn't want to feel like she's walking on eggshells, never knowing how he'll react. Emotional strength means being able to face disappointments, rejections, and hardships without falling apart or becoming desperate for comfort. Neediness is another major sign of emotional weakness. When a man constantly seeks attention, when he can't handle being alone, when he relies on a woman to make him feel whole, he becomes a burden rather than a source of stability. Women don't want to feel like they are responsible for a man's happiness. They want a partner, not a project. A man who is emotionally strong can enjoy companionship without being dependent, can express his feelings without losing control, and can handle life's ups and downs without breaking. Women notice when a man lacks this strength, and the moment they feel like they have to carry his emotions instead of leaning on his stability, their attraction starts to fade. Allowing disrespect without consequences is one of the clearest signs of weakness a man can display, and most don't even realize they're doing it. Women pay close attention to how a man responds when he's challenged, dismissed, or disrespected, whether it's by her, by friends, or by strangers. A man who lets things slide too often, who brushes off disrespect just to avoid confrontation, who tolerates being treated poorly without pushing back, sends a message that he lacks self-respect. And if he doesn't respect himself, no one else will either. This doesn't mean a man has to be aggressive or confrontational over every little thing. It means he needs to establish clear boundaries and enforce them. If a woman speaks to him in a way that's condescending, if she tests him by seeing how much he can get away with, if she ignores his time, his effort, or his values, how he responds determines whether she continues to respect him. A man who nervously laughs off disrespect, who apologizes when he's not at fault, or who allows others to talk down to him without standing up for himself, creates a pattern where people see him as someone they can walk over. Women naturally test boundaries, not always intentionally, but to see what kind of man they're dealing with. If a man allows repeated disrespect, it tells her that he lacks the strength to stand up for himself. And once that happens, attraction and respect start to fade. Strength isn't about fighting every battle, but it is about making sure people know where the line is drawn. A man who commands respect doesn't demand it. He simply won't tolerate anything less. Women notice this instinctively, and the ones who truly value strength will never settle for a man who allows himself to be treated poorly. Hesitation and indecisiveness under pressure are major signs of weakness that women notice almost immediately. A man who freezes when faced with a challenge, who hesitates when action is needed, or who constantly second-guesses himself in crucial moments sends a clear message: he lacks confidence, direction, and leadership. Women don't expect a man to have all the answers, but they do expect him to make decisions with conviction, especially when the situation calls for it. Life is unpredictable, and challenges come without warning. When a man hesitates too much, whether it's in his career, his relationships, or everyday situations, it creates doubt. A woman wants to feel secure in the presence of a man who can think on his feet, trust his instincts, and make firm choices. If he pauses too long before answering a simple question, if he can't make up his mind about where to go or what to do, if he struggles to take charge when needed, it creates an impression of instability. Women don't want a man who is reckless, but they also don't want a man who is paralyzed by indecision. Indecisiveness also signals a deeper issue, a lack of self-trust. A man who doubts himself will constantly look to others to validate his choices. He'll avoid risks out of fear of making mistakes, and in doing so, he'll miss opportunities. Women want a man who takes responsibility for his decisions, not one who waits for someone else to lead the way. Hesitation under pressure shows a lack of preparedness, confidence, and resilience. His strength isn't about knowing everything. It's about moving forward despite uncertainty. Women respect a man who can make a decision and stand by it, even if it means adjusting later. Apologizing excessively for no reason is a subtle but powerful indicator of weakness that women notice immediately. A man who says sorry all the time, whether he's at fault or not, reveals a deep insecurity. He's not taking responsibility for his own space, his actions, or his emotions. Instead, he's seeking reassurance, constantly trying to make everyone else feel comfortable, often at the expense of his own sense of self. Women don't find this endearing. They see it as a lack of confidence and control. There's a difference between offering a sincere apology when it's warranted and apologizing for every little thing, even when you haven't done anything wrong. When a man apologizes for speaking his mind, for setting a boundary, or for simply existing in a space, it communicates that he doesn't feel entitled to his own presence. A woman doesn't want a man who is constantly seeking permission to take up space in the world. She wants someone who owns his words, actions, and decisions without second-guessing every move. Excessive apologizing also shows a lack of emotional stability. A man who is constantly worried about upsetting others, who goes out of his way to make sure everyone is happy, is emotionally reactive rather than proactive. Women are attracted to a man who can hold his ground without being overly apologetic, who doesn't feel the need to shrink to make others feel comfortable. A man who apologizes too much is often seen as insecure, unsure of his own worth. And when a man doesn't stand firm in his own identity, it's hard for anyone to take him seriously. Women respect a man who knows when to apologize, but more importantly, they respect a man who doesn't apologize for being himself. Not having a clear purpose or direction in life is one of the most telling signs of weakness, and it's something women can sense almost immediately. A man without a clear vision of where he's going, who lacks passion or ambition, sends a message that he's lost or unsure of his place in the world. Women are naturally drawn to men who have a sense of purpose, who are driven by something bigger than themselves, and who know exactly where they're headed. A man without a clear direction is like a ship without a rudder. He drifts through life, reacting to circumstances rather than shaping them. Women don't want to feel like they're waiting for a man to figure things out. They want a partner who has a plan, who knows what he wants from life, and who is actively working toward it. A man who lacks purpose might seem aimless, unmotivated, or indecisive, and that's not attractive. Purpose isn't just about career goals or financial success. It's about having a reason to get up every morning, a vision that fuels every decision. Women want to see a man who is passionate about something, whether it's his work, his personal growth, or his impact on the world. When a man is lost, wandering through life without a clear sense of direction, it's hard for a woman to feel secure in the relationship. She wants someone who is confident in their journey, who is working towards something meaningful, and who can lead by example. A man without purpose may eventually become a source of frustration, as women naturally want to see progress, growth, and direction in the person they're with. Fellas, let me be clear. Weakness isn't about being vulnerable. It's about failing to show up as the best version of yourself. It's about avoiding discomfort, failing to make decisions, and allowing others to walk all over you. It's about being unsure of your place in the world and constantly seeking validation. A man who is emotionally unstable, indecisive, and inconsistent isn't someone who can lead, protect, or build. And women, they can sense all of this from a mile away. But here's the good news. You can change it. You don't have to remain stuck in these patterns. You can choose to be the man who sets boundaries, who makes decisions with confidence, who stands firm in his purpose, and who doesn't apologize for being himself. Strength is a choice. It's a decision to take responsibility for your life, to move with conviction, and to never apologize for knowing who you are. Women respect a man who has self-respect. They're drawn to a man who is secure in his decisions, his values, and his goals. And when you show up as that man, when you start taking ownership of your life, they'll see it. The game changes. The respect is earned. And that, my friends, is the kind of man you want to be.